So romantic comedies aren't really my thing. Like, I don't dislike all of them. There are some of them that I do enjoy, but overall it's kind of a genre that I never really get excited about. It's not one that I look forward to. And with this one, I was like, well, it's a romantic comedy about a lot of filthy rich people. Just people with far too much money. Like, I'm not going to be able to relate to any of this. I'm not going to like this movie. I was wrong. I loved it. I loved it more than I thought I would, and more than I probably should.
Put the button back in the box.
Starring, amongst others, Constance Wu, Henry Golding, Gemma Chan, Awkwafina and Michelle Yeoh. Directed by John M. Chu, off of a screenplay by Peter Chiarelli and Adele Lim, this is my review for Crazy Rich Asians. Crazy Rich Asians is the story of Rachel Chu. She's been in a relationship with Nick Young for a while now, but she's never met his family. He's going to be the best man at his best friend's wedding, and he invites her to join him. But that means that she's going to meet everybody, and what she's unaware of is that this family are ridiculously rich. They're stupidly rich. They have more money than a bank, than 12 banks. They've got a lot of money. Once she's there, it doesn't take her long to realise that she's not entirely welcome. There are people there, particularly his mother, that view her as lower class, as not acceptable for her son. She's American, she's not strictly Chinese, she's not very wealthy. So she's got a bit of an uphill battle to try and win them over. Now, this movie has done amazingly well overseas. In the States, it's become massive. It's become a juggernaut. So much so that we weren't actually meant to get this here in the UK until November. And because of how big it is and how big a thing it's become, it got pushed forward 2 months and we got an unlimited screening. So we got to see this yesterday, as I say, about 2.5 months before I was ever expecting to see it. And as I kind of alluded to in the intro, romantic comedies aren't really my thing, so I wasn't expecting a lot from it. You know, it's hard to tell, even when people are raving about a film, even when it's doing massive numbers, that doesn't necessarily mean that the film's going to be good. 50 Shades of Grey being a prime example of that. So it was one that I thought I'd go and see just to see what all the fuss was about. And I'm really glad I did, because I loved this film. And so much of that is down to the characters, because the characters in here are, even though they're all filthy rich, even though they are, I still liked a lot of them. I still wanted to spend time with them. It's one of those movies where when the credits rolled, I was like, right, let's get a sequel going. And it's very rare for me to want a sequel. Normally when it comes to sequels, I'm just like, oh, I don't need to see another one of these. Like, just leave it as one and done. We don't have to make everything a franchise. But with this one, I want a sequel. I want a second movie just because of how much I enjoyed spending time with all of these people. Because this is a perfectly cast film. Constance Wu is just adorable as Rachel Chu. She really is. She's such a nice, sweet character. But yet also a bit fierce. Like, she's fine with standing her ground. Like, she gets put through a lot in this film. Like, she's not having a happy time for the entirety of the runtime, but she still never really lets it get to her too much. There's always some fight in her, but she doesn't lose that kind of innocence that she has in the process. She just absolutely nails this role. And there's not really anybody that doesn't. The cast as a whole are great. There's some characters I think that don't work quite as well as others. For example, Remy High, he's in Neighbours, bit of trivia, but his character seems too over the top to be taken seriously, and there's a couple like that in this. There's a couple of characters that just feel a little bit too silly compared to everybody else, that they just don't feel quite as real as them, but they're few and far between, because for the most part this is just a cast full of characters that are all welcoming, that are all nice, that are all friendly, and even the ones that aren't. Michelle Yeoh's character in particular, she's not very nice throughout a lot of this, but there's something, I mean, she's a seasoned actress. We know how great she is. You've seen her recently in Star Trek Discovery, as well as many other things. This woman can act. But even though she's not that nice, I'm fascinated by the performance of her. I still want to spend time with her as well, and that's a really tricky thing for a movie to pull off. To have characters that are being pretty nasty and pretty horrible, but still have them be utterly captivating, and this does it perfectly. It also blends the drama and the comedy extremely well. There's one scene towards the end where everything kind of goes terribly wrong, and it's a really dramatic moment, and it's a really sad moment, but right in the middle of it, there's just this really quick shot of something funny, a little joke that's been building, played right in the middle of that scene, and I really appreciated that they did that. Because they just showed that, yeah, we're going through a bit of a sad moment in the movie at the moment, but we're still going to try and make you smile at the same time. And that's perhaps the biggest takeaway from Crazy Rich Asians for me, is that it's a film that wants to make you smile. It's a film that wants you to have a good time. And it does that throughout the entirety of the runtime. I will say that the first act is a bit slow. It takes a little while to get going, and I do have some other sort of problems with it as well. I don't think it's a perfect movie. For example, there's an affair subplot in this. There's a storyline about one of the characters having an affair that doesn't really feel like it belongs. It just, if that story was taken out of this movie completely, it wouldn't change a thing. It wouldn't change anything else that's going on, so it just felt a bit superfluous. Felt like it didn't really need to be in there at all. And that's not to say it was a bad aspect of the film as such, it just wasn't given quite the amount of focus that it perhaps should have done. If we'd have given it a little bit more time to get to know the characters involved, then it would have been a little bit more effective. But as it stands, it's just kind of sort of shoehorned in a little bit. But really, those are kind of the only complaints that I have. Because this manages to have all of these characters with all of their money, so the people that I should hate out of bitter jealousy. You know, the ones that, if they lost £50,000 or dollars or whatever currency they have out there, they'd probably just go, it's annoying, I'm sure it'll turn up. Like, if I lose a fiver, I'm looking for about an hour to try and find it. So I resent these people. That's why I don't like them. But I do in this, because there's just something about all of them that just makes me want to watch them and makes me want to spend time with them. And that's just down to how they're all written and how they're performed. And that's another thing, because Crazy Rich Asians is a movie that I shouldn't really like. As I say, it's a romantic comedy, not my favourite thing. There's people with lots of money. For example, there's The Wedding. The Wedding's the most over-the-top thing I think I've ever seen. But at the same time, I still kind of got emotional about it. And towards the end, when we get to the end of this movie, it really got me. Like, felt a little bit of a tear. Like, I was really fully involved in these characters, and I wanted them to have a happy ending. I was rooting for them. And even though it follows a very predictable path, it still manages to feel fresh. This film will probably follow all of the beats that you expect it to follow. It will end up at the point that you expect it to end up. And it doesn't really offer much in the way of surprises along the way there. And really, that should be a negative. That should be something I'm criticising it for, but I can't. Because I had such a fun ride with it. I had such a fun time with it that even though it is a bit predictable, I didn't really care. I sort of wanted it to be, in a way. I wanted it to hit the sort of beats that it hit, the ones that I was expecting, just to kind of get that fulfillment from it. And I got that fulfillment 100%. And it is very, very funny as well. Awkwafina is perhaps the standout here. When I saw her in the trailers, I thought she was going to be the irritating sidekick character. She's not at all. I mean, she is the sidekick to a degree, but she's so much fun with it. She seems to be having such a great time, and she's responsible for some of the best lines in this film. Ken Jeong is really, really funny. In fact, I can't just keep listing people, because I will keep going through characters that had these great funny moments. And even though it is a very funny film, it is also quite emotional. There's some serious drama going on at the same time. But as I mentioned with that scene earlier, where it combines the two, it does that throughout. It never leans too heavily one way or the other. It seems to have just found that perfect middle ground. And another thing I want to mention as well is the soundtrack. There's some songs here that are covered in China. I think it's Chinese. Some songs that are covered in Chinese. For example, Coldplay, Yellow. And I loved them. Absolutely loved them. So much so that I'm going to get the soundtrack to this movie. There was just something about those songs and the way they're sung. It's a very different take on them. And they feel very different in a different language. And I just loved how they're used. Yellow, in particular, is used at a pretty important moment in this film, and it just goes with the scene absolutely perfectly. It's not often I'll talk about the songs used in a movie, but it's only when it feels necessary to mention them, and it does here because they're used brilliantly. So yeah, I don't think Crazy Rich Asians is a perfect film, but I do think it deserves all of the acclaim that it's been getting. It's a very special film, and it's very, very rare for me to see a romantic comedy and want to go back and watch it again so soon afterwards. And I do. Once it gets a proper release over here, I'm probably going to go back and watch it for a second time. Because as I keep mentioning, I love the characters in this one. I want to spend time with them, and I want to spend more time with them. It says a lot that it's a romantic comedy I want to go see again, and I'm begging them to make a sequel for. I really hope that happens. I'm going to give Crazy Rich Asians a 9 out of 10. Have you seen Crazy Rich Asians yet? If so, let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and let me know too your favourite romantic comedy. As I say, I'm not a huge fan of them, but there are some I like. 50 First Dates is one in particular that I've always had a bit of a soft spot for. I've seen that film many, many times. It never gets boring. I miss Adam Sandler being good. I miss those days. They used to exist. But yeah, let me know yours in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Do hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. There'll be an episode by episode of Buffy. We're on to season 3. That's coming tomorrow. Look out for more reviews as well in the next few days, in the next couple of weeks. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.